no empathy. We'll see how they got that way, guys. But first, I think we need to bring them to heel.
Warning, you are about to enter a free-thinking, innovative, open-minded...
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics.
Now I'm going to point out some specific things, 6 of them, that we find inadequate about the President's plan. I think the President has to join us in making a significantly greater commitment to these 6 areas to stem the rising tide of violence in America, and that's what it is, violence. First, we have to join together to ensure that drug dealers are punished swiftly, surely, and severely. And in line with what the President is calling for, we have to hold every drug user accountable. Because if there were no drug users, there would be no appetite for drugs and there'd be no market for them. Let's take a look at what the real problem is. It's not just how many people are using drugs. As the President said, the number of people using drugs, cocaine in particular, is down in our country. That's true. But the violence associated with drugs is spewing out all over America, and that's terrible.
How did that work out, guys? How did the consensus go? Was there a consensus about this? Or are there still talking points because these two parties thrive and live on the division of the American people and the neglecting of our birthright and our inalienable rights, life, liberty, and happiness? So this clip, guys, let's analyze this clip. Since Tucker Carlson gave Jason Whitlock a platform, I'd like to dissect how retarded this whole entire conversation was, really. And this is what you do, by the way, guys, with speech you don't like. You don't censor it. You don't not give them a platform. You don't cancel or ban speech you don't like. You speak about how retarded it is. You convince people with your reasoning and your logic and your debate skills. This is why I do this, guys. And I invited you guys on the platform as well to do this as well. We all need to discuss and reason together. We don't need to ban, we don't need to cancel, we don't need to censor. We need to give each other a platform, no matter how much we disagree on issues. We need to take these issues and we need to discuss them thoroughly. And we need to debunk all of the propaganda and misinformation that comes out of retards like Jason Whitlock's mouth. This is the only surefire way to destroy his ideology and his philosophy, his propagandist philosophy. By banning him and canceling him, you make it seem like you want to hide what he has to say and what he says is valuable. Censorship, guys, it's never a good idea. I say give everybody a platform you disagree with and then debunk their bullshit in real time, which is what I'm about to do now. And this is how we used to do it back in the 80s, guys, before you millennials fucking became snowflakes.
He's had like the triple problem of being a woman, and so people not being willing to respect her the way that they would respect a male vice president, of being black, which we already know that what that carries with it is the anti-blackness.
So Joanne Reed's talking about Kamala
like
Harris right now.
The triple
why people don't like
a woman,
her.
And so people.
Never mind the fact that she smears veterans and lies about her record and laughs about fucking imprisoning people for smoking marijuana. Never mind that she keeps people in prison even though DNA evidence proves that they're innocent on death row for the labor of California prisons. Never mind, guys, that she lies constantly about her positions and she cheats and coalesces with neoliberals to defeat progressive candidates and make sure that they never get a chance at ever being the commander-in-chief of our country. Never mind that Kamala Harris is a deceitful, non-faithful spouse to her husband, and also, not to mention, a horrible speaker in her own right. Never mind the fact that everything she does, every project that she's involved in becomes a crisis in this administration for the last 2 years. It's because she's black and a woman. People just haven't gotten over that. Joanne Reed, guys.
People not being willing to respect her the way that they would respect a male vice president.
We just don't respect her that way. We're the people making her retarded, guys. If you would just really respect a black woman, then Kamala Harris would probably have the confidence to not be so retarded.
Carries with it.
We're the ones doing it, guys. Undermining her confidence.
And then also being vice president at a time that is really, really difficult.
Joey and I talk about this all the time. Madam Vice President, and you know this, Charlamagne, she black, okay? Yes. She went to Howard, she AK, and
Madam Vice President, she black, okay? I mean, she incarcerated all the black people in California for smoking pot. She kept people at death row with DNA evidence. She kept people in prison longer for labor. I mean, she black, bro. She laughs about incarcerating people for smoking marijuana. She black, bro. She lies and wants to fucking fund for the Democratic Party. She puts party politics over the United States of America. I mean, that's black, right? How is she black?
She talks to you.
Shanae.
It is. I mean, she sounds like.
When she talks to you, she'd be like, Russia is a big country. Ukraine is a small country.
She's so regular and approachable, and it's unfortunate that more people don't see that. And there's also just the dumbing down of the American electorate.
You can say that again, Shanae. I mean, how fucking dumb are you that you think she's a regular person? This woman would literally incarcerate your ass, and she would literally laugh about it, and probably deny incarcerating you afterwards.
We could go on and on. We could read excerpts from Tiffany Cross's book, which are brimming with racial hostility. We could play you a million clips from Joy Reid, which are exactly the same, filled with open racial hostility.
True. At this point, guys, we've illustrated, Joanne Reid has conveyed the virtue signaling and the race baiting that the liberals do, and they literally package it. They package that propaganda as division to not only make themselves, better than their conservative rivals. Oh my God, you're just not respecting a black woman, and I respect a black woman, but these people are just so racist. They're using us as political footballs to garner votes for their party, and once again putting party politics over the country. So that was Joanne Reid clearly illustrating an example of what I'm talking about when I say that liberals use black people as political footballs. So what part of that isn't true? Also, she kind of fucking hates homosexuals, and she wrote many essays about the fact that homosexuals are degenerates and pedophiles. So she's pretty homophobic as well. Probably not anymore because she was caught and those journals were deleted, and she said someone hacked her, but nobody knows who. There was an investigation. Turns out nobody hacked her, but it's all good. I mean, she respects a black woman, though, Joanne Reid.
But you get the point, and if you don't believe us, just go ahead and tune into MSNBC. But it's not really about that channel or those hosts. It's about a society that thinks that's okay. Where it's not really about diversity, it's about hating other people on the basis of their race. And
yeah, bro, because, if you don't hate people, then how are we going to do talking points that trigger your hate, and then we get elected off of your emotional behavior your outing, your out stuff. What do they call that? Your behavior outright? I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, guys. When you act out of rage and emotion, they take that and they could package it, and they can make it even. Me, we're against the border. Me, we like black women. We have respect for black women. I mean, how can all of these one-dimensional cardboard cutout, lines, talking points, how can they be real if you don't if they can't touch on your hate to make you have that emotional trigger, which causes you to keep voting for two parties that have literally caused an outrageous amount of debt that triples consecutively every year, income inequality in the United States at the Gilded Age, regime change wars that murder your brothers and sisters and countrymen overseas, and extract the wealth and resources from the middle class. If they can't touch on your hate and emotion, then how are they going to make you forget the fact that they didn't do a goddamn thing about you while they told you to stay home, except give you $1,200 checks and $600 checks, but they gave Wall Street $400 billion to buffer their stock market so the market wouldn't crash as these companies literally went bankrupt again. Again. By again, I mean they did it before in 2008 and we bailed them out.
It's a little bewildering.
If they don't touch on your emotion and and you don't hate people enough to not want to give them a platform, how are these people going to keep robbing us and using the reins of government to carve for themselves from the very engines that which brought them to unjust dominion their own amount of wealth and their own amount of power that will, without term limits, go on for all eternity? How will the establishment machine continue to keep turning if we can't touch on your virtue signaling propagandist emotional triggers?
To the rest of us, thought the whole point of America was that we're aspiring to a country where we are judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And all of a sudden, racial reductionists don't simply have the floor and the platform on cable news shows, but have apparently the unquestioning support of the biggest telecommunications company in the United States. What does that say about the country and its leadership? Jason Whitlock is the host of Fearless. He joins us to respond tonight. Jason Whitlock, thanks so much for coming on. This seems, and I'll just be honest, as noted, I didn't really know this was happening. I'm not all that interested in hearing people talk about race, and I'm definitely not interested in watching that channel. But once you do watch it, you think, how can this be happening and nobody says anything?
So, guys, Tucker just made the statement, by the way, and he's very eloquent because he's been doing this for a long time. And he's extremely forthcoming with his devotion to his principles and values. And he made the statement that he doesn't really want to talk about race because he judges people on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And so all of this virtue signaling is irrelevant to the fact that our country is slipping into crisis after crisis by the neglect of our birthright and a neglect to promote the general welfare and the usurping of the reins of government from these tyrants, the Democrats and Republicans. We've allowed them to turn all of our once great and wonderful principles and values. We've caused them to turn all of those into sour and rot and trash. We've thrown away our old principles and values, and we've replaced our old principles of values of life, liberty, and happiness with virtue signaling, with wealth worship, money worship, greed. We've replaced our old principles of life, liberty, and happiness with celebrity worship and idolatry. So, Tucker, on the other hand, he judges people on the content of their character because the character of every person was endowed by the Creator with inalienable rights, life, liberty, and happiness in the Constitution of our nation. That he still believes in that stuff. So, talking about race in this country where all men are created equal is repugnant to Tucker. You see that, guys? Do you see how someone who's not racist actually sounds? In fact, he talks about the fact He not only quotes Martin Luther King, guys, but he actually says this whole talk of race is repugnant and is doing the opposite of being productive for the promotion of our general welfare. And he's right. I completely agree with him. And MSNBC is spewing hateful, racist takes while they're propping up the Democratic Party and distracting the fact that Kamala Harris is a bloodthirsty, megalomaniac, narcissistic whore of the establishment. They're distracting from those points and the message of Tulsi Gabbard, what Tulsi Gabbard said about her record, which is, you can Google it, it's all true.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. That would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response?
Distracting from all the facts and empirical data that us free thinkers analyze. And they're just going to go ahead and distract from that. And they're going to talk about how she's a black woman. And that's why she's so disrespected. It's not about the content of her. It's not about the content of her character. It's about the color of her skin. Do you see how that's the exact opposite thing that Tucker Carlson said? And these people in MSNBC, they say they're liberals. Do you see how Tucker Carlson's the liberal, guys? How Tucker Carlson's the one standing up for the Lockean liberal principles of John Locke on Fox News. Isn't that crazy, guys?
Tucker, it's pervasive across corporate media. It's pervasive in the sports world. It's one of the reasons why I left ESPN and Fox Sports, to be quite frank with you, and wanted to do my own independent thing because of the way that we talk about race in the corporate media. It's very unhealthy. It's very toxic. It's intended. People have been bought and paid for to undermine this country.
Yes, people have been bought and paid for to undermine this country. Corporations bought and paid our politicians by organizing a law that the Supreme Court upheld called Citizens United, making money speech and all bribery legal. And money in politics has destroyed our democracy and replaced it with oligarchy,
You suck.
greed, tyranny, and absolute totalitarianism. So on that point, you're correct. And notice how he just said, what did he say again, guys? This is a hilarious thing because he's about to do exactly what he talked about. Go ahead.
Unhealthy. It's very toxic.
So he's talking about
Corporate media is very unhealthy. It's very toxic.
The corporate media talking about race is very unhealthy, very toxic.
And paid for to undermine this country.
And it undermines this country. True. So continue, Jason Whitlock.
Joy Reid, any of the other people doing this type stuff, they know exactly what they're doing. They're doing exactly what they're told to do.
Correct.
They're planting the seeds to make people believe that the American experiment is a failure and the Constitution needs to be rewritten.
That's right.
And they're using race as their disguise.
All right, so the great experiment, guys. What great experiment is he talking about? What's the great experiment that Jason Whitlock is talking about? Well, guys, in a few minutes, I'm going to continue the clip. I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. But let me tell you about the real great experiment. The real great experiment started, like I said, with out of many voices, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A great experiment started with a democratic system, with a president, the head of government, the implied powers of the president, not like a monarch's. Every man created equal and endowed with their creator with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and happiness. In this Constitution, amendments could be added to make a living document more perfect and a union more perfect with it. The great experiment continued when Washington, D.C. decided as the nation's capital, was decided as the nation's capital in 1970, and we continued our union with a Supreme Court that did checks and balances to the legislative bodies and made sure the laws were constitutional, and the executive branch executed the will of the American people. And the voices of the American people were heard by the votes that they cast in the elections that were held every 4 years, every terms. And the primaries in the election process were given the utmost care, as each party, through the voices of the American people and the grassroots movements, picked their candidates. And the people with the most grassroots movements, the people with the trust of the American people, the people who were faithfully executing the will of the American people and executing their oaths to protect the nations from threats, foreign, domestic, those candidates were rewarded with re-elections, such as FDR. The people had a very important part, guys. And every person had the same amount of voice. Money wasn't speech. Speech was speech. And we were free to have speech. We were free to have life, liberty, and happiness. A strong system where out of many, one voice. And out of all the views, different perspectives, strengthening our country with different angles. 50 stars. The stars and stripes covering our country with the blood of patriots that fought for freedom. The freedom for us to manifest our own destiny, speak with our own voices, and have life, liberty, and happiness. That was the great experiment that was written in the Constitution. Now, you just heard Jason Whitlock. He's talking about how he was a sports guy in ESPN. So maybe I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this guy's just a fucking, he's such a jock. He's such a luckhead that he never read the Constitution and he thinks it's something else. But notice how he said this race politics, this identity politics, the propaganda that MSNBC doing, it was toxic, unproductive to the country. It was undermining our unity, right? Check out what he does right after he says that. Now he's going to talk about the great experiment.
That's the entire agenda here. They're not hiding it. America is a failure in their mind because the outcomes don't meet their demographic criteria or quotas. And so all of this is to bait all of us into a race war and distract us from an attack on America, its Constitution, and primarily it's an attack on God.
So it's an attack on God. How is it an attack on God? He's about to tell us. But the things that they're intending, of course, it's an attack on us. It's a divisive tactic to make us hate each other. This identity race politics. It's a way for them to pedestal themselves above, by virtue signaling, above their conservative rivals. It's a political tactic to make us utilize this as a political football, which they've been doing since the 60s. And before that as well.
People get upset that, like Christian nationalism. This country was founded on biblical principles.
So the country was in fact not founded on biblical principles. In fact, the First Amendment, like I explained to you, gives freedom from all religion, and the Constitution only once mentions God in the Constitution. It's talking about the separation of church and state. The only other time God is mentioned in the Constitution is the preamble, and it talks about how God gave us life, liberty, and happiness, and how we should have freedom from religion, separation of church and state. And they didn't really like the Christian religion very much. Don't forget, these colonists were once took the Mayflower in the 17th century because they were being religiously persecuted from the church at the time. So the Judeo-Christian principles thing, that's propaganda, guys. And he's never read the Constitution clearly because, you know, God's only mentioned twice, and each time it's saying, I'm not founded on Judeo-religious principles. I want separation from Judeo-religious principles, and also I want freedom of speech and freedom from religion. So the Constitution actually says the opposite of the Judeo-Christian principles.
This is a biblical experiment, the United States of America, and it has been a success. The atheists, the Marxists, the people hostile to God want to end this biblical experiment, and they're using race to tear it down.
So that's like the absolute most retarded fucking conclusion to ever come to. It's really weird how right-wingers come to conclusions, bro. Like, you get it all right. Like, yes, they are using race to divide us and polarize us, check us as boxes, use us as political footballs and shit. They want us to hate each other, and so they can, investigate the other side and maintain power in the status quo. But then all of a sudden it goes to biblical principles out of nowhere, guys. And if you read the Constitution, there are no biblical principles. What are you talking about, Jason Whitlock? Jason, could you name some biblical principles, or are you just going to talk about how they're biblical principles? He's not going to do that because just like, Joanne Reed talked about how it's not any of Kamala Harris's behavior that people don't respect. It's the fact that she's a black woman they don't respect. He's going to talk about it's not the fact that these police officers are gangbangers who have no accountability and who are hard stretched to ever come to justice for their crimes against humanity and the American people. He's going to ignore all of these points of speaking truth to power, and as a conservative bootlicker, he is going to distract us with biblical principles and more right-wing propaganda. Watch this. This is on the way. This is some Bill O'Reilly shit, guys.
That's the nuclear weapon. Race. We haven't treated race right. We got to write a new constitution. This whole thing's been a failure. It's a smokescreen. It's an attack on God. Those of us that are believers.
It's an attack on God. Even though 5 cops brutally beat for absolutely no reason that even the police chief of Memphis can even convey to us. Quote, like I said, Police Chief Sarah Davis says it's unclear as to the real reason for the traffic stop in the first place. She doesn't even know the police chief of Memphis does not even know why the Scorpion unit was doing traffic stops, as they are once again, organized gang unit. And what was the reason? That reason is unclear in the first place. This guy doesn't even want to talk about how that's, like I said, guys, this is what propaganda does. It gets you off the trail of the questions that were actually going to solve the problems. It gets you on the trail of bullshit bonanza partisan propaganda. And God, for some reason, they're attacking God, even though a black man was brutally beaten to death by 5 officers of the law, and with powers that the state imbued them with, and a gun that the state authorized them to carry, with a baton and a badge that gave them authority to stop an individual as he is enjoying his life, liberty, and happiness that was endowed by his creator. Let's not talk about the fact that these cops have authority to arrest us, to detain us, to jail us, incarcerate us, separate us from our families. They have the power to kill us with their guns that are authorized by state sanction. And such power should be spoken truth to. Such power should be held accountable for actions. Such power should be monitored. Such power should always in a government that protects the rights of citizens and individuals and proclaims them for them to manifest their own destiny and liberty. These powers must be. They must be righteous at all times. They must illustrate justice, blind justice. They must serve and protect the community and promote the general welfare. They must assist in securing the blessings of liberty to all posterity. That is what serving and protecting the American people entails. It's not, and God has nothing to do with it, Mr. Whitlock.
Of our surface level differences of skin tone. If you're a believer, you gotta wake up and look at what they're doing. They're attacking God. You think they're attacking you. They're not. They're attacking God, and they're attacking a country that was founded on biblical principles. Is this country perfect? No way. But it's better than anything else.
So, first of all, like I said, the founders were Masons. They came here on a Mayflower boat to survive religious persecution. Everything he's saying is complete and utter bullshit. And there's absolutely no evidence to even prove what he's saying, which is why he's literally not giving any examples of how the Constitution, has Judeo-Christian principles in it. If he could give me one example of a Judeo-Christian principle within the Constitution, I would be surprised. If he could give me one example of how they're attacking God, I'd be surprised. But he's not going to talk about that. He's just going to blather on like a propagandist, and he's gonna literally do exactly what he accused Joy-Ann Reid of doing, which he correctly addressed. But he's gonna turn around and do it the other way.
The only biblical experiment
this is amazing.
That's ever been tried with a nation.
Amazing, fucking.
Are better than anybody
this is amazing.
else has ever gotten. What
and he's black. He's a black man in America, guys. He's a black man in America. He's old enough to know about the marches in Selma, where cops beat old ladies attempting to vote in election booths. He's old enough to remember the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and the wars of Vietnam. He's old enough to remember the Federal Bureau of Investigation pouring drugs into communities of color and the Black Panthers using guns to actually shoot the infiltrators that were authorized by the state to make sure that we assimilated peacefully into a white supremacist system. He's old enough to remember all of these horrible atrocities that were done by the Ku Klux Klan and the Patty Rollers, from which the police history was it was a foundation. It was the exact origin. The Patty Rollers protecting the property of the elites and chasing down the slaves that ran away was the exact origin of the police. That is police history. The black man talking about how they're attacking God. He's distracting from, of course, his beloved civil institution, the law enforcement agency, which brutally murdered a man for no clear reason.
In this country to correct our racial problems, or steps other countries haven't come close to. This is satanic what they're doing.
Then Wanda, this is starting to look a lot like BET. I tell you that. do not be shocked if you see those diabetes commercials. You know? oh, Ozempic. Black people love that song. You could have 1 foot, you still dance to that song. You don't even care. All right, of course, we have a lot that we need to talk about, so we're gonna get right to it. So I'm sure many of you heard by now that a young black man in Memphis was pulled over by the police, and we all saw how it went down.
For the first time, we are seeing the violent arrest of Tyre Nichols. What began as a traffic stop quickly turned violent, as captured on multiple videos released tonight by the city of Memphis. Officers are seen pulling Nichols out of the car.
I'm just trying to go home.
They use pepper spray and deploy a taser during a struggle. Then for roughly 3 minutes, officers are seen repeatedly kicking and punching Nichols while he was handcuffed. As Nichols lay on the ground, bloodied and bruised, several minutes go by without any of the officers administering first aid. Nichols died in the hospital 3 days later.
Is it a shocking video? Yes.
Shocking. You know who wasn't shocked by that? Black people.
Sorry guys, I'm in the middle of dissecting this propaganda tirade from Jason Whitlock, who was on Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson acting as the classical liberal, talking about the content of the character, not the color of the skin, talking about how race politics is repugnant in a nation that is endowed with their creator by inalienable rights of life, liberty, and happiness, and that we're all created equal. To talk about race politics is repugnant and only divisive, toxic, and unproductive for the promotion of our general welfare. So Tucker coming out with a strong statement there, even though liberals don't like these people that have platforms. I prefer, instead of censoring, banning, canceling conservatives or people I disagree with, I prefer giving them a platform and debunking all of their bullshit in real time. It's really cool. It's what free thinkers do, guys, with our empirical data and facts. So here, let's finish up with, now, here Jason Whitlock is gonna talk about the Tyre Nichols tragedy. And he's gonna go a completely other, he's gonna come to a completely other conclusion than talking about law enforcement. He's not gonna talk about how power should be always not operating with absolute totalitarian, implementation. He's not going to talk about how our Constitution made it so that the separation of powers created checks and balances that curtailed the powers overreach of every branch. He's not going to talk about how the cops, the history of the police, originated with the patty rollers, who were tasked by the plantation owners, slave plantation owners, to procure and obtain any runaway property that tried to make its way north of the Mason-Dixie line. They were slave catchers. They protected the power and property of the elites. They maintained the status quo of the plantations and the agriculture thereof of the cotton fields and the tobacco fields. Cotton fields in the South, which created textiles and agriculture, which poured weight to the Industrial Revolution in the textiles during the South, and the northern tobacco farms, in Virginia and in Maryland. Tobacco grew, and slaves were needed to make sure that those crops, were picked, and slave labor was used to build the White House. It was built by slaves, as was almost everything this country founded on. It was created and maintained by slave labor, which his Judeo-Christian principles, by the way, they were defending the fact that black people should be slaves. The slavers said that we were the descendants of Ham. And in the Bible, Ham did something. He saw Noah drunk, and Noah cursed him and said, Japheth, you're going to be the servant of Japheth and Shem. And so we're the descendants of Ham, and we have the curse of Noah. So we deserve to be slaves because we have the curse of Ham. Also, slaves, obey your masters. That's in the Bible. And turn the other cheek. That's in the Bible. So slave plantation owners used to use verses from the Bible and ideology from the Bible to make sure that we did not ever try to become any kind of individual, a free person. We were cursed by Noah, and we deserve, with our African American skin, with our African skin, we were heathens. We weren't blessed by the divine Catholic Jesus. Cleanses away sin. You're dark, therefore full of sin and cursing. It was all very inward. Now, on the other side, the abolitionists were also arguing, as well, biblical terms. They were talking about how Jesus' sacrifice, when he decided to die for the sins of all men and save us from sin, he freed Barabbas, and he freed us from sin. And Jesus' whole entire philosophy was to be born again and to never go back to the past, to become fishers of men, and to love one another as you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and body. He talked about the Beatitudes, and he mentioned, whatever you do to the least of my brethren, you do unto me. So they were both, the abolitionists and the slavers were both utilizing different verses from the Bible on the same issue, guys. It was amazing. It's amazing how the Bible is a great tool and narrative for all governments and all movements to utilize in pushing their propaganda forward. It's amazing. That's what it was intended for. Constantine, of course, famously created the Bible to unite Rome under one empire, because Rome was being torn apart by corruption. People were paying off the military, people were paying off the Congress, people were paying off, and then people were killing the Caesars. People were killing the emperors. And it was just unsustainable, guys. It's almost like what's happening now. When people are paying off the military, people are paying off the Congress. We're literally echoing every mistake that Rome ever made. So, in trying to unite Rome with all the corruption that was going on, and all of the murders that were happening, and all of they did the breaded circus, of course, the Colosseums, and they blamed the Christians for the burning of Rome. Famously, Nero did. But before Nero did that, or after Nero did that, I'm sorry, Constantine decided, okay, we're gonna just get this Christianity, and we're gonna unite everybody. It's gonna be the religion. And thusly, the Vatican and Rome was formed, and the church established power and was able to forgive sins. And you had the indulgences, of course. You all check out indulgences. You paid enough money, you could literally do whatever you wanted by the blessing of the Father and the Pope. And it was amazing, guys, how the Pope, the Roman Catholic Church, and the Empire all became one monarch. And if y'all ever watch the Tudors, they talk about Henry VIII and how he killed his wife Anne Boleyn. And it's completely sanctioned by the church. The marriage was illegitimate. They literally unmarried Anne Boleyn, the Catholic Church, just for Henry. It's amazing, guys, the power. So, guys, anyway, long story short, guys, I went on a tangent. But long story short, these Judeo-Christian principles, guys, they were the first propaganda. Now we have, of course, the race-baiting liberals, and we've got the conservatives that are dividing, making toxic and polarizing the country in their own way. And we're going to watch Mr. Jason Whitlock illustrate his right-wing propaganda and his way that he likes to divide, polarize, and make toxic the welfare and the entirety of the American electorate. So let's check out Mr. Whitlock and see how the right-wing divides and makes toxic our society.
including these 5 Memphis police officers. It's an open and shut case. The camera from above captures the police doing something totally illegal. The second-degree murder charges are warranted. This is going to be a revisitation of the Walter Scott, the guy that got shot on camera by a cop in the back. He got convicted, went to prison. It's an open and shut case. This is too. I don't get what people are protesting about.
So, Mr. Jason Whitlock, who looks black in this video, but again, he must have forgotten the history of how we weren't allowed to vote, how we were slaves merely by the pigmentation of our skin, and we were literally infiltrated and drugged by the state law enforcement agencies of this country. They literally poured crack cocaine into our neighborhoods on purpose because they did not want to see us succeed and debunk the stereotype that white excellence was superior to black excellence. He doesn't remember that, guys. But let's talk.
These are 5 black officers. The victim is black. The police chief is black. The police have been fired and charged, and they will be convicted, I would assume, by a predominantly black jury in a city that's 65% black.
Now, he sounds really upset about this, but he is right on some certain points, so let's give him some credit on this. It is a cut and try case. The cameras did capture the brutality of these police officers. It was a crime against humanity. It was a crime against the society of the United States of America. It was a perversion of the principles and values, and it was a desecration of the oath that they swore to serve and protect the community. So it is a cut and dry case. There is no need for race politics. He is correct about that. There is no need for Joanne Reed to add her own version and virtue signaling of propagandism. So go on and let us know why we're protesting. I just want to let you know why we're protesting Jason Whitlock. Because once again, Jason Whitlock, we have a constitution that you didn't read because you were working for ESPN or whatever. I know you're a sports guy, but if you read the Constitution, it says in the First Amendment here, the First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, the Judeo-Christian principles, or prohibiting the free speech, the exercise thereof, of abridging the freedom of speech. Shall not abridge the freedom of speech, man. What does that entail? Well, let's read on. Stay with me there, Mr. Jock, Jason Whitlock, Mr. ESPN, Fox football guy. Okay, so it says, or the press. So that means even though Joanne Reed is literally doing racist politics to divide and polarize and make toxic our society, she still has the freedom to do that in the First Amendment. Isn't that crazy? It's cool though. We can still debunk her. I know you're not smart enough too. It's probably why you're moving on to right-wing propaganda. But you cannot abridge the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. What are the redress of grievances, may I ask? I've listed an entire page to the redressing of grievances. I've talked about the income inequality. I've talked about the lack of access to health care. I've talked about the manipulation of pharmaceutical companies to make illegal life-saving drugs at the expense of the American people's life. We've talked to you about the curtailing of our civil liberties and the incarceration, mass incarceration of people of color during the crime bill in 1994. We've talked about the not making that right. We've talked, the redress of grievances we want to talk about is the income inequality now since the Gilded Age. It's the 1% extracting the wealth and resources from the middle class. It's the outsourcing of our jobs to Malaysian girls who make 5 cents an hour in Uyghur work camps, Communist Party work camps. It's the treason of choosing party politics over the welfare of the American people and electorate. It's the cabal and coalescing of big corporations and government in the event to take our civil liberties from us that God himself endowed upon us, life, liberty, and happiness. Take those, surveil them, cancel them, ban them, fine them, undermine the Constitution, and neglect their oaths to protect us from all foes, foreign and domestic. They have taken our children across the seas to fight in wars for money and oil. They have lied. They have put us in danger. They have poisoned our waters. They polluted our oceans. These are the redresses of grievances. They have not given blind justice. They have not fulfilled the promise of the Constitution and the preamble as we were supposed to, by our birthright, to fulfill. They have not promoted the general welfare. They have not secured the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. They have not given blind justice that illustrates all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with life, liberty, and happiness. They have not. And with no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. It's not just a saying, guys. It's a consequence. It's just a consequence of neoliberal policies. It's just a consequence of corporatism philosophies. It's just a consequence of neoliberal policies, corporatocracy policies, oligarchy instead of democracy. It's just a consequence. No justice, no peace. And we have the right to peaceably assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievance. The lack of justice, the lack of equality, the lack of health, the lack of transparency, the lack of truth. These are other grievances for which we protest. The lack of humanity, the lack of liberty, the lack of responsibility, the lack of accountability. These are the redresses of grievances for which we petition. And with these petitions, with these assemblances, we have gotten results, haven't we? We've had an entire Scorpion unit, which was supposed to be used for organized crime. It was turned upon the American people for unclear reasons. That was disbanded due to our petition of grievances. That was disbanded due to the truth telling to power. That was disbanded due to the patriotic practice of speech that the American people have. They have the right to speak on. We, the people of the United States, promote the general welfare. We secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, not the institutions that are corrupted beyond all imagination, not your celebrity idols, game show hosts that you vote for president, not your propagandist, race-baiting, propaganda, manufacturing consent for the military industrial complex, Wall Street, the banks, puppets that you see on television, being the lapdog of the establishment and the status quo. We, the people of the United States, we promote the general welfare. We secure the blessings of liberty, and we have the rights of life, liberty, and happiness. And our free speech shall not be abridged. Our grievances shall be heard. So I don't give a fuck what you think about why they're protesting or why they're not protesting. The reason why we're protesting is because we got a list of grievances. Just like they had a list of grievances that King George ignored. So they declared independence. So you just better listen to our fucking grievances, Mr. Whitlock. That's why we protest, by the way. I hope I could explain that to you, Mr. Whitlock. Probably wouldn't hear that on ESPN.
So the system is going to work here. What the other system that's working is the corporate media's
So the system doesn't work because the police are murdering citizens that they are sworn to serve and protect, Mr. Whitlock. And that's why we're protesting, because the system doesn't work. For some reason, I'll get to the bottom of that in the next live stream of why such record time the police chief decided to transparently indict and arrest these 5 police officers, which almost never happens, guys. A lot of people were very smart and very quick on the draw when it comes to how fast this all came out. And there's a reason for that, I know, guys. We'll figure that out together. But this should be the standard of accountability for power and authority that the state sanctions. That would be a sign that the system works, Mr. Whitlock. That would be a sign. If this was the standard of the accountability that the state sanctions with weapons of murder, with authority to detain, incarcerate, and confine, with people who swear to protect and serve the community and the American people thereof, this would be the standard consequence for their egregious behavior, wouldn't it, Mr. Whitlock? That would be a example of the system working. But the system doesn't work because this is merely a one-off.
Promoting racial division,
Mr. Whitlock, this is the first time.
Of the military-industrial complex. They want us all looking at this and not looking at what they're doing in Ukraine as they drag America and the world into World War III. This is a distraction, in my opinion. CNN hyped this video like they were hyping the Super Bowl. And there's really...
Now, it's true what he says. They did hype this video. And as you know, CNN hypes every video that includes a black man meeting his death at the hands of riots, police officers. If it bleeds, it leads. That's what journalism is. And you said you were in journalism for a long time, Mr. Whitlock. So have you ever heard the term, if it bleeds, it leads? That's why CNN is hyping the video. They're doing it to prop up the Democratic Party, garner votes by virtue signaling their liberal propaganda. And they're also gaining watchers and raising ratings, which is what corporations like to do to grow revenue and quarterly growth profits. They're losing watchers every day. They need content that people will watch. So that's why CNN is hyping the video. Are you surprised, Mr. Whitlock? Mr. Whitlock, this is literally an example of the system and how it works. So when you say the system is working, Mr. Whitlock?
60 seconds of relevant content. You show the police misconduct from overhead as they brutalize this man and make it clear this is an open and shut case and the guys are going to be convicted, and we move on. They treated this like a Super Bowl, enraging people, promoting the violence, and this is the most important story in the history of the planet.
So Mr. Whitlock doesn't know what's going on. He just referred to 5 police officers brutalizing one man for unclear reasons of even why he was stopped by them, because they were organized crime unit officers that were part of a Scorpion unit that only deals with organized crime. He just literally compared it to a Super Bowl. And he thinks that that's okay.
It's not.
Continue.
What's going on in Ukraine and our military involvement in Ukraine, that's the most important story going on in the world.
Actually, the most important story that's going on in the world, or in America, is the fact that we, the people of the United States, have inalienable rights endowed by our Creator. We have freedoms and liberties that no Congress shall make a law to abridge. That no president shall have the power to upturn. They are inalienable rights that are given to us by God Himself, life, liberty, and happiness. And yet, they are being undermined by the propaganda that your parties spew via you.
Yeah, they don't.
He's about to give it.
Focused on that.
That's such a good point.
Mr. Whitlock is about to give the perfect example of my point with his next completely out of touch, bullshit, bonanza, crazy, unrelatable. How the fuck did we get here? Conclusion of what the fuck, why this happened. See, I think this happened because data-driven policing, the crime bill, the police force started profiling minorities, putting databases on the American people, started surveilling us, and started to try to think of us all as domestic terrorists by profiling us all and putting us all in databases. They literally just they gave us all dossiers, right? So now we're all enemy combatants, right? Since they have profiles on all of us, and what we're gonna do, and according to our our tax bracket, we're more inclined to what? Because that's how they do it, guys. All these questions they ask you: what's your race? What's your gender? What's your tax bracket? These are all questions that will dictate how you're gonna act in public. If you're more susceptible to being a thief and stealing at Walmart because you're poor, if you're more susceptible to going to Harvard and Yale because you're a legacy student and you're upper class East Coast elite. All of these questions that they ask you guys, they're to profile you and they're to predict the behavior that's going to be coming from you. Just so you know.
I mean, you've been in the news business all your life, 35
It's kind of
years.
un-American, guys.
I felt guilty putting that video.
It's kind of not manifesting our destiny when these guys surveil us, they take our data, and they try to predict our behavior based on our fucking tax brackets, our gender, and our fucking race. It's kind of not manifesting our destiny.
Video on the screen, not because I was on anyone's side. I felt obviously bad about it. It was horrible. But because you don't want to put ugly things on TV and inflame passions. You want people to be reasonable and think things through and reach wise decisions. Why would news organizations, I mean, they really want to make people enraged.
Yes.
Clearly.
They don't want us focused on reality. Hey, if they want us to devote an hour of coverage to this and weekend coverage of this, and they want to take us to a good place, I would examine the racial element of this, because there is a racial element. And this is a story about...
No, Mr. Whitlock, there's not a racial element of this. It's funny, Tucker just said he doesn't want people to be upset, be irrational, act on emotion and knee-jerk reaction. He wants people to be critical thinking. He wants people to be clear-minded. He wants people to make rational decisions. So once again, Tucker Carlson, in this conversation, being the voice of reason, being the model classical liberal. Mr. Whitlock, though,
young black men and their inability to treat each other in a humane way.
Red, right-wing propaganda alert, right-wing propaganda alert. So now this guy who just literally 5 seconds ago, he just lambasted Joy-Ann Reid for race politics. He's gonna go race politics the entire other way. Right in your face, guys. This fucking black guy is gonna turn into Bill O'Reilly. Watch.
Everybody involved in this on the street level was either 24 to 32 years old. Everybody. It was a group of young black men, 5-on-1. Looked like gang violence to me. It looked like what young black men do when they're supervised by a single black woman.
So, let's take that, guys. Young black men do when they're supervised by a single black woman. Well, Mr. Whitlock, you're correct to say this is gang violence. Because, see, the cops are a gang. You back the blue, or they close ranks on you. In the Memphis Police Department, they're tapping phones. They're wiretapping people. Snitches they're watching out for. They don't want people to talk about what they do. That's, they're very closed when it comes to outsiders. They're very, in tune with their emotions and feelings. They don't want to be threatened. They don't want to be disrespected. Don't you dare disrespect a cop. You need to follow our directions or we will beat you to death. But of course, Mr. Whitlock thinks that this is just not about abuse of authority and the culture of police and how they feel that their feelings and emotions and whether they're respected or not is more important than the lives of the people they swore to serve and protect. No, he thinks that this is 5 black men on 1 black person because the single mothers. Now, who are the single mothers in this story? Sarah Lynn Davis is married to Terry Davis. They've been married for years. Tyre Nichols' mom and dad are married. There are no single mothers in this story.
What they got going on.
Where did you get the single mother thing?
They've elected some or put some black woman into the police force, and we're getting the same kind of chaos and disunity and violence that we see in a lot of these cities that are run by single mothers.
So, like I said, Sarah Lynn Davis is not a single mother. She's not running the city either. She's the police chief of Memphis. And she's married. And her and her husband raised their kid together. And that's not a single mother. What the fuck are you talking about? You literally... If I tweeted Mr. Whitlock just to ask him where he got this bullshit attack on black women from. It's just out of fucking... It's like out of nowhere. You just fucking literally bash. Now you're the person that literally gives Joy-Ann Reid. You're the person that literally gives Joy-Ann Reid credibility. She was talking about how people don't respect black women. Literally, do you even fucking know that Sarah Lynn Davis is married and that couple raises a kid together? She's not a single mother. But plus, she wasn't supervising this. 5 black officers, because they're officers and they thought they could get away with it, decided to beat a man to death. And afterwards, they joked about it and they didn't give a shit. And let me just tell you, I know a lot of black people. I don't know you, Mr. Whitlock. I'd like to know you. I'd like to know what the fuck is going on in your retarded fucking head. But none of the black people I've ever met would ever beat a man to death. Would you? Because you're black, Mr. Whitlock. So would you? Are you an animal that was unsupervised? That was supervised by a fucking? Are you talking about yourself? Are you the animal that was supervised by a single mother? Are you mad at your mom because she couldn't fucking give you a fucking Nintendo? Because she was working? She couldn't spend enough time with you? Are you just a boot-looking little baby bitch that's just gonna like distract from the fact that authority needs to be held accountable, that justice needs to have consistency and blindness and equality towards all American people? You're just gonna fucking go off about single mothers. There are no single mothers in the story. Unless you had a mother that was single. Are you just, is this some kind of like outburst because you hate your mom? Is this a mom thing? Are you mad at your mom or something? Mr. Whitlock, it sounds like it.
If we want to discuss the breakdown of family that leads to disrespect for authority, that causes you to resist the police and...
So you saw the fucking video, you just said it was cut and dry. The police chief said it was unclear why the stop even happened. You have no idea how he resisted authority. So what the fuck are you talking about?
Run from the police and not comply.
You just said it was cut and dry. They'll be convicted.
Authority at all time because there was no male authority in your home. Let's have that discussion. But that's not where they want to take us. They want to take us down the path of saying, you know what? This is Tucker Carlson's fault. This is some random...
It's not Tucker Carlson's fault for sure. Tucker Carlson has been eloquently talking about the repugnant attitude he has towards the race baiting and identity politics that divides our country and causes hurt and pain and trauma for the citizens that exist in perpetuity. You just used identity politics to convey the fact that you believe that black men are such animals and such lack parentage. They lack principles, values. They lack conscience. They lack human emotion. They're such super predators that they would literally... This is what just 5 black men do when they get together. You would literally say that about black people, bro. Just to fucking hide or defend or distract, I don't even know, from the fact that these cops did a horrible atrocity because they believed they were above the law. And it's literally that simple. You're conservative. You like simple answers. Like, how do you go from the police abusing of their authority that was given to them and shitting on their oaths that they swore to protect and serve? How do you go from that to single mothers? How do you go from that to blaming single mothers? And you just said that people are going to blame Tucker Carlson. People are going to blame other people. People are going to use propaganda. But you just blame single mothers, and there's literally no single mothers in this story. So what the fuck are you talking about?
Fault. It's not. It's the breakdown of family and the buying in to all these left-wing things that have no...
Left-wing things, buying in, communists, protect the border, free market. He's fucking... Mr. Whitlock, I just want to ask you, for black man to black man, have you been doing drugs, Mr. Whitlock? Are you high right now?
They're bringing drugs.
I just want to know, because, like, I need to know if you're mentally retarded, Mr. Whitlock. Are you mentally fucking retarded? Because you literally make one point about the left, and then you literally illustrate the fact that you're just as disgusting and obtuse and completely toxic and irrational with your conclusions, Mr. Whitlock. You took literal pieces of evidence and examples from the people that you say are dividing the country and poisoning the social fabrics of our country, and then you illustrate to me that you're just as a degenerate, sick, polarizing, partisan puppet as they are.
You suck.
Just the other way around. Talking about fuck you, Mr. Whitlock. I need to talk to your mom, Mr. Whitlock. I need to know if she was a single mother, because maybe that's the only person I can guess you're talking about. Maybe it was your mom that you're angry about.
Nothing to do with promoting family.
Miss Davis is not a single mother. Tyre Nichols' mother is married to Mr. Nichols. There are no single mothers that you're taught in this story. You literally just pulled that out of your ass. So your ass must be mad at your mom.
You've been on the show so many times, and every single time you say something I never would have thought of, including what you just said, and I appreciate it. Jason Whitlock.
I never would have thought about it, Tucker, but I don't appreciate it. Yeah, guys, I tweeted Mr. Whitlock, and I voiced, with my free speech, I voiced my displeasure at his mental retardation and his unknowing, boneheaded hypocrisy that he just conveyed in literally a 4-minute clip. He literally took examples of why people are toxic, and he illustrated why he's toxic, all in like 4 minutes, guys. This is what partisan puppets do unknowingly. This is why you give them a platform, guys. I think we need to give all of these partisan puppet propagandists a platform, and I think we just need to take them one at a time and show them through the ropes of empirical data, critical reasoning, and pros and cons and logic. And I wish that Tucker Carlson would push back on, Mr. Whitlock. Maybe he would if people weren't calling him a racist all the time. He's really just got to stay. But I mean, in that conversation, Tucker Carlson talked about the content of the character. He talked about the repugnant attitude of race baiting when our country is supposed to fulfill the Constitution's promise that all men created equal. He's talking about moving us forward into prosperity. He's talking about how we should learn from our mistakes, and we should not be irrational and do knee-jerk reaction, emotional make decisions when it comes to the welfare of our nation and our families. We should take things seriously, and we should, pontificate clearly and meaningfully about the choices that we're making, because the choices that we're making every day have consequences. So bravo to you, Mr. Carlson, but I wouldn't have added that at the end. I wouldn't have thought about it either, Tucker, but he's fucking retarded. Mr. Whitlock, if you can just get back to me on Twitter, I need to know why you're so fucking retarded. Are you mad at your mom? Is it about your mom? Did you get hit with the football too many times? Why'd you leave ESPN? Was it a black woman? Did she fire you? I'm gonna find out. But more important than that, guys, I gotta find out why Miss Davis decided to be so transparent. This is just too good to be true. It was record timing. I've heard that she did get in trouble in Atlanta. She was fired over some investigations, some sex crime probes, and she is not, the white, sinless lamb that I thought she was. She was not just trying to be accountable. She was. I think she could have been learning from her mistakes in Atlanta. I'm not sure, but I've got some inside sources from the Memphis Police Department, and they've conveyed the fact that she has created the Scorpion Unit. She had a unit. They had a unit like that in Atlanta that was responsible for brutality. It was the Red Dog Unit, and this is all a part of data-driven policing. We're gonna talk more about that on my live stream this Tuesday, Tommy Nation Politics, which you can see at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'll be streaming live, guys. I've got it all planned out. I'm trying to research data-driven policing. I'm trying to research the history and background of Miss Davis. I'm trying to find out what exactly started these policies that incorporated organized gang units into traffic stops. I'm trying to identify the system, the systemic racist parts that still plague people of color in this country today, and are just key reminders that we were founded not on Judeo-Christian principles, but on the backs of slaves, and the brutality and savageness of Indian extermination, Native American extermination, and indigenous people, guys. It's just a sad state of affairs. I don't think this great experiment of America, I don't think the right or the left, I don't think we want it to fail at all. I think we want it to fulfill its promise. I think we want to unite as one voice. I think we need to learn from our mistakes. Stop making excuses. Stop distracting and smearing single mothers or veterans or gays or Jews. Start taking responsibility for your actions. Start living up to your values and principles. I think we want to make America great again, guys. That's what I want. You can only do that, guys, if you're free thinking, innovative, open-minded. And I'm Mr. Jason Whitlock. I'm glad you got a platform on Tucker. Now that I've seen your, your little thoughts and opinions, I can take that and I can debunk those. Show people how retarded you are, Mr. Whitlock. Censorship, that would just make people think that you're saying something special, like Alex Jones. Alex Jones is super powerful. Alex Jones is making so much money now that he's censored. He's fucking secret, man. You can only find Alex Jones on the internet, man. He's so valuable, man. Ugh. No, we're not gonna make you special, Mr. Whitlock. We're gonna let you have a platform. And we're gonna show everyone you're fucking retarded. And you don't really identify any of the you don't resemble any of the principles and values of any American, even though you try to quote talk about the Constitution and our values. What you resemble is the character of Samuel L. Jackson in Django Unchained. You're a coon. You're an Uncle Tom. You're that's all I'm gonna say. We can talk about this, Mr. Whitlock. I've tweeted you, and I've informed you that I'm calling you a coon to your face. So this is no backstabbing. I don't backstab people. I'm in your face calling you, Mr. Jason Whitlock, a coon and an Uncle Tom. And I expect you, if you have any respect as a black person, which you probably don't, you're blaming single mothers for the abuse of cops. You're probably mentally retarded, or you've got brain disease from football. Cranial concussion. But yeah, just letting you know, Mr. Whitlock, I'm talking shit about you Tuesday. I'm probably gonna be talking shit about you every single time I hear your name. Because Because I think that you're tired. I think I already said that. Bye, guys. I'm just rambling on now. Hey, if you have anything to add, by the way, you can help me figure out why an organized gang unit was making traffic stops and how Tyre Nichols, how he even got into the hands of the cops. The police chief doesn't even know. So help me, guys, research that. And also help me research what the fuck happened in Atlanta. Where did she come from, guys? That's what I'm looking into. I'll see y'all Tuesday. Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy